Marsland. So there could be a truck coming through here. Hopefully they can see me. Starting today's trip right here on the border with Nebraska and South Dakota. And right there with South Dakota, if you go down that way, that's Highway 71. And we're gonna be in Nebraska, and that's Highway 2. And just down the road here in South Dakota, if you're wanting to do this trip, about a mile down the way, there's a really cool ghost town called Ardmore, and a very abandoned place. But yeah, let's talk about Nebraska Highway 2. So when I'm looking at my gazetteer and I'm looking for places that are, as it says, forgotten, places that don't have much population, this part of Nebraska is definitely one of them. And looking at the different highways that would make an interesting road trip, Highway 2 looks like it would make an interesting road trip. Now it goes for a while. It goes for almost 400 miles down to Grand Island. We're not gonna go that far. Then actually it has an eastern section as well. But we're gonna be up here and check out this kind of northwestern part of Nebraska. There may be a couple towns, but I think there's gonna be a lot of small communities, ghost towns, unincorporated places, a lot of wide open land. So let's get started and learn about Highway 2. So way up there in the top corner, there's Ardmore. And Highway 2 goes down, looks like through Crawford, and then it's gonna start heading east there to Alliance. You can kind of see how wide open Nebraska is, especially compared to over here, much more populated area. We're gonna be this part of the state. So here's where we're starting. I mentioned the town of Ardmore, the ghost town in South Dakota. And we're gonna go right along the state line. And this is actually 2 and 71 combined, so US 71 and Nebraska Highway 2. We're gonna go pretty much straight east. You can see 2 and 71 going right through the national grassland, and then straight south. And we're gonna go to our first town of the day, Crawford. Crawford was founded in 1886 as the Fremont, Elkhorn, and Missouri Valley Railroad extended west towards Wyoming. The railroad reached nearby Fort Robinson on May 11, 1886, and the town quickly developed just east of the military reservation. Crawford was named for Lieutenant Emmett Crawford, a U.S. Army officer who had served at Fort Robinson and was killed in Mexico in January of 1886. The town was officially platted on June 21, 1886, and grew quickly. Within a short time, Crawford had dozens of businesses, including hotels, restaurants, stores, banks, saloons, and other establishments catering to railroad travelers, local residents, and soldiers stationed at Fort Robinson. Its location along the railroad made Crawford an important transportation and commercial center for the surrounding ranching country as well. The town also became associated with colorful and sometimes rough characters of the Old West. Soldiers, railroad workers, cowboys, and travelers passed through Crawford, giving it a lively reputation. The nearby fort remained an important influence on the community for decades. As railroad traffic and military activity declined, Crawford became a much smaller town. Today it serves as a gateway to Fort Robinson State Park and the scenic Pine Ridge region. When you look at the population, you can see how it peaked there in the 1940s and 1950s, over 1,800. Since then, it's been declining quite a bit. In fact, it's lost more than half of its population, down to 840 today. Crawford, we're gonna head straight south there on 2 and 71, take a little detour over to Belmont, and then we'll also go down and take a little detour over to Marsland. A couple miles east of Route 2 and 71, this is Belmont. And you can see the railroad, and this was the reason why the town existed, but not for the reason that a lot of towns exist. This was here because they wanted to build a tunnel over here. And so people had to come and live here to help build this tunnel. And a little town sprung up. 1889 to 1956, they had a post office, and town's kind of over this direction. I drove around and found some buildings. There's a old school that somebody seems to be living in, some abandoned buildings, and then there's probably maybe 4 houses. So a few people living here in Belmont. Let's see if we can go that way a little bit and find the old tunnel. Take a little walk down here. So I pulled down and parked kind of back there, and guy right there with the machinery said I could drive back here. Actually, it's private property, but they didn't mind. I thought I'd get a little exercise, but he was a nice guy. So I'm guessing the railroad used to go this way, and then when they figured out they didn't need the tunnel, they could go this way. So that's pretty cool. Looking how they dug all that out too. And the train still goes through here. Just went through here actually a few minutes ago. So apparently this is Nebraska's only railroad tunnel. Pretty interesting, you know. Not a lot of mountains in Nebraska, although there are definitely some, you know, I guess you call them mountains, or significant hills, some bluffs in western Nebraska. Probably not too far from here. Head south from here a little bit. Scotts Bluff, in that area. And there it is. Definitely a lot cooler in here. It's hot today. It feels 15 degrees cooler. They're still doing some work down here, guy told me. So there could be a truck coming through here. Hopefully they can see me. That's some good artwork. Most of the graffiti's not very good, but that one's pretty good. Well, only one way to go back. Marsland. Seems like something out of some science fiction movie. It feels a little more apocalyptic around here. But you see the railroad right there? You see the train passing through? That came from Belmont. And Marsland or Marsland relied on that as well. It was established at that time. They built the Belmont Tunnel around 1890. And it was a railroad community. Next stop on the railroad. They had a rural post office here till 2002. And there's a couple houses. See Lake right there. A lot more abandonment than people living here anymore, but pretty interesting. There's about 2 streets that go around town, so we'll check it out. And look at that old school. We're a couple miles from town, way out back roads here with a cemetery. It says 1899. Been about 10 years after the start of the town. It's definitely a old western cemetery. Leaving Marsland, we're continuing south, and then 71 is going to go that way to the west. We're going to go east on 2, over to Hemingford, down to Berea, and then a little bit of a detour just north of Alliance, and then eventually to Alliance. Hemingford was first settled in the summer of 1885 by Canadian immigrants who came to the Nebraska Panhandle seeking new farmland. The Lincoln Land Company formally platted the community in 1886. It was named after Hemingford, Quebec, the former home of several of the settlers. The town quickly became an important community in the newly created Box Butte County. In 1890, voters selected Hemingford as the county seat, and a courthouse was built here. The Burlington Railroad also reached the community, helping the town grow into an agriculture and transportation center. However, there was a county seat battle, and in 1898, voters chose Alliance instead. In 1899, the courthouse was remarkably moved about 20 miles from Hemingford to Alliance by railroad. The town became well known for potatoes and was once promoted as the potato capital of the world. In 1930, nearly 2,000 carloads of potatoes were shipped from Hemingford. Today, it remains a small agricultural community. You can see the population kind of up and down through the years. In 1930 and 1980, 50 years apart, it was just over 1,000. It's dropped a little bit off of that today, down to 787. Berea is our next stop. You can see the railroad kind of over there. That's where Highway 2 is. We're kind of back in the back roads of the town here. Got an abandoned church over here. Got a few abandoned buildings around town, a couple older ones, and then there are still people living here. I'm guessing there's 20 or 30 people that live here. It was a railroad town, and I think that its demise, now it's unincorporated, is probably because there's a couple towns that's in between. So it had trouble developing like commercial enterprises. And all that's left is some houses, a little bit of a probably railroad business for a little while, grain elevators over there, and just kind of a quiet stop. Had a post office kind of off and on throughout the years from when the railroad started until kind of the mid 20th century. It was named for Berea, Ohio, which is up near Cleveland, and somebody who lived there came out here, started the community, named it after his hometown. As the sign says, welcome to Carhenge, one of Nebraska's most unusual roadside attractions. It was created by Jim Reinders as a memorial to his father, who lived on the farm here where Carhenge now stands. While living in England, Reinders became fascinated with Stonehenge and decided to recreate the ancient monument using something distinctly American, automobiles. With help from about 35 family members, he constructed Carhenge during a family gathering in June of 1987. 38 vintage American automobiles were arranged and painted gray to imitate the stones of Stonehenge. The monument was dedicated on the summer solstice that year. Carhenge initially faced opposition from local officials, who ordered the unusual sculpture removed. Friends of Carhenge formed in 1989 and successfully worked to preserve it. Additional automobile sculptures were eventually added, creating the Car Art Reserve. In 2013, Carhenge was donated to the City of Alliance and has since become a nationally recognized Nebraska attraction. Definitely an unusual place to come visit. I've had many people tell me I should visit Carhenge, so glad I finally made it. Now I can say not only have I been to the real Stonehenge in England and Truckhenge in Kansas, I've also been to Carhenge in Nebraska. I've also been to the Cadillac Ranch, which is a similar type deal in Texas. Very interesting. Our next town is Alliance. It's kind of the biggest town in this area with 8,000 people. And, usually I don't profile towns that large on this channel, but I'll go through Main Street, tell you a little bit about Alliance. Alliance was founded in 1888 as the Burlington Railroad expanded through Nebraska. A settlement called Grand Lake had developed along the railroad in 1887, but the community was renamed Alliance when the railroad arrived. The story says railroad engineer J.N. Paul suggested the town name after his hometown of Alliance, Ohio. The town grew rapidly as a railroad center. Burlington made the town a division headquarters, bringing railroad shops, workers, and businesses. Within only a few years, the population exceeded 1,000. As mentioned previously in Hemingford, Alliance eventually became the center of a county seat fight in Box Butte County and won the title in 1898. Town remains an important transportation center in western Nebraska today. As you can see by the population figures, it's a much larger town than some of these other places we've been. Almost 10,000 people in the 1980s. It's dropped off a little bit though, down to 8151 today. This is where we're going to end today's video. Make sure you come back next week and we will continue on Nebraska Highway 2. Now that you made it to the end of that video, let me tell you about some of the extras on the channel. One of the things you can do is become a member. There are 3 levels of support. There's supporter, producer, and executive producer levels. All 3 have different levels of fun incentives and perks. If you haven't done so, please check out travelwiththewiseguy.com. There are lots of extras on there to explore. One of them is merchandise. We have Travel with the Wise Guy coffee mugs, Death Go Round t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and all sorts of fun things to show your support of this channel. Also on the website is a custom Google map. I've dropped pins in every place I've visited and linked the episode to each location. This seems to be a very popular feature for many of you. Also, sign up for my free newsletter that goes out about once a month. There are all sorts of links and tidbits on this page, old videos, podcasts, and just about everything I can think of I throw on the website. For all that information and more, go to travelwiththewiseguy.com. And now, the reason you're probably here, the outtakes. In the park of Crawford, Nebraska. Man, Crawford has an awesome downtown. This is so bright today, and oh, that's hot, even just putting my hands on it. Bright yellow. It spins pretty well, just a little noise, but that's an effective death go round. It's super hot today, and that thing is gonna scald you, but good solid death go round, 7.5. Might be a little while to get your car worked on in Marsland. They got one in their backyard. How cool is that? Nice horse. So they had one in somebody's backyard over there. Looked nicer than this one. This is the one definitely they used for the school. Missing a little bit, but I like it. Very large. Needs a little bit of work. Spins pretty well though. You give it 7.1. Ow! Dang.